So if you have gone to a dealership and you have heard something to the effect of, I'd love to sell you this vehicle, but you just have too much negative equity, or we tried to go through the financing, but the banks just said no to you. I'm going to talk to you today about what that means and how that situation comes to bear. It's typically is a situation that revolves around an industry term called LTV, loan to value ratio. This is a term that is basically in all types of financing, but in the automotive industry, what it means is that the bank will not finance you and your vehicle if you have too much money owing on your previous vehicle, the negative equity you're bringing over to it. How this situation comes up. I was in this situation. I had about $11,000 of negative equity on a vehicle that was worth $5,000. And I got very fortunate in a situation where I was able to hide some of that money into my next vehicle. Now, I'm going to show you an example of how a situation like this comes to bear and how you can get yourself out of it. So let's just say you're looking at a new vehicle and it's worth $50,000. You did a really good job of negotiating it, so they got a $2,000 discount, and then you had about $1,000 in rebates, which means you buy the vehicle for $47,000. Hey, great job. However, your old vehicle is worth $20,000, that's your trade-in value, and you got $40,000 owing on it, which means your negative equity is $20,000. That is, unfortunately, a somewhat common situation. So those two numbers get added together and you have in total $67,000 that you're trying to finance. Finance office says, oh, hey, this is amazing. You're a great vehicle. You're going to be financing it for a long time, of course, because how else are you going to afford that payment? You get a $3,000 warranty extension. In total, you're paying about $70,000 plus your taxes for a vehicle that MSRP is worth $50,000. Well, guess what? The bank's going to say no, because your loan to value ratio is 140%. Loan to value ratio is how much the vehicle is worth compared to how much you're financing it, simply put. Now, let's talk about how you can get into that situation. Now, let's say you buy a vehicle, or you're looking at a vehicle, it's $65,000 MSRP. Good news, this one has $10,000 in rebates, and you did a great job of discounting it to a 3-5% discount, so you're buying the vehicle in total for $53,000. Same situation with your previous vehicle, $20,000 owing, you're trading it in for, $40,000 owing, you're trading it in for $20,000, and that means you have $20,000 in negative equity you're bringing over. $73,000 plus tax is your sale, what you're financing. That is only 112% LTV. This is a much more attractive situation, not only for the financing, for the bank, but it's also a much more attractive situation for the dealership. Because as we all know, the dealership doesn't make their money when you buy the vehicle. The vehicle makes the dealership money when you finance the vehicle through the dealership, when you purchase extra packages. And most importantly, in the long term, the dealership makes money when you service your vehicle with their service department. So how you get into one of these scenarios is probably how you started off. You had a vehicle that was financed for much more than what it was worth, and you're buying a vehicle with much less value than what you're financing it for. This isn't necessarily a bad situation. It might help you in the long run because it might give you the opportunity to get into a better situation for your debt servicing ratio. You might open yourself up to being able to buy a house because you have a lower vehicle payment. All these other things might be true, but the fact of the matter is the situation is entirely dependent on you. I can't tell you that this is a bad situation. I can't tell you this is a good situation. I can simply paint the picture for you and let you color in the squares. The fact of the matter is, especially when you're looking at buying a vehicle, is that there is no real right answer, but it is way too easy to see all this information on the paper, have it explained to you in a really amicable way. Because again, a dealership is a for-profit business. They're going to try and sell you this, and that's fine. That is what they're there for. As long as you understand that, then it is what it is. However, getting prepared and understanding that this is a situation that exists and how you can prepare for it, be ready to process this information, and understand what you can do to protect yourself in these situations is step one. If you want to learn a little bit more about how this situation might benefit you, how you might be able to work the system a little bit to make it work for your particular situation, and if you want your next car buying experience to be one that you remember, not one that you forget, call me. I'm Austin. This is Fountain. We deal with dealerships. You drive home confident.